Now, the dismal state of municipalities is quite a never-ending story. The Auditor General's municipal audit released earlier on this year has showed that only 38 of the country's 257 municipalities achieved clean audits in the 2021-2022 financial year. And only 2 of the 8 metros, well, service delivery, waste management and corruption are the main causes of the poor performance. So let's find out how the mayor of Thembisile, Hani Municipality in Mpumalanga is currently dealing with this and more issues around the state of our municipalities. Thank you so much, Mayor Lesetja, Dikgale. Thank you so much for your time and good morning.
Good morning to Mel and good morning to your viewers.
It's a pleasure having you on because we came from a break where before on my colleague Lesetja Jones was in Ekurhuleni. The constant, concerns raised by residents and South Africans alike about the state of our municipalities, not only in Ekurhuleni, it's Hani as well, Johannesburg as well, with the conditions of the collapsed streets and, burning buildings. But in your view, how would you describe the overall, across the board, state of our municipalities in the country?
Generally, as a local government, we are facing a bit of a challenge, particularly if you look at the bigger challenge that is facing local government, the funding gap. Because most of these municipalities, if you look into their challenge, is around maintenance of existing infrastructure. And because of that funding gap that was created by the white paper in 1998, it has made it impossible for municipalities at the same time to develop new infrastructure in areas that were not developed before 1994 and maintaining existing infrastructure. That is why at the level of SALGA, because I'm also an NEC member of SALGA, right, we are fighting that gap because we believe that the nationally raised revenue must be shared in relation to duties and responsibilities as stated in the Constitution, which is not the case. We are having 46% of responsibilities as local government, but we are only given 10%. And out of that, we are expected to be seen to be excelling, which I believe is unfair.
Yeah. Also, when we talk about financial management and governance, do you attribute those challenges that are clearly evident, in our municipalities through the Auditor General's report to the funding gap? Is the funding gap the foundation of the problems that municipalities also see when it comes to financial management and governance?
We believe so, that it is the foundation. But in addition to that, one of the areas that we are working as local government to correct is the issue of institutional capacity, particularly the kind of people that we are putting in key positions. Because we can't have a situation where you are having a CFO, but you are having consultants creating your annual financial statement. It says the level of capacity sometimes is wrong. That is why we are saying when you have the necessary funding, you are able to get a highly qualified AC and you are able to pay for that person. If you look for your smaller and small town and rural municipalities, their bigger challenge is their grading. They are unable to attract the necessary skills like you will do in a metro. So that is why we are saying the reason metros are not functioning very well is the issue of the gap in terms of funding and the institutional capacity that they must make sure that they are correcting moving forward.
Right. So are you also saying, Mayor, that most of our municipalities don't have the necessary skills required to conduct the business of the day? There seems to also be a skills deficit, a skills gap there, informed by the funding gap.
Yes. And then we must also understand that the other thing, particularly when you are talking about your small or rural municipalities, is the issue of how they were created by the demarcation board. If you create a municipality that lacks any kind of what we'll call tax base through your property rate, because that is one of the more important funding that we get as a local government, you'll find that those municipalities are created to fail because immediately you are unable to fund your program. For example, in Thembisile, we have what we call 5-pillar-led development based on the key development of our 2050 vision, which is to develop a city, which we believe if we can use what we call our 5 pillars, the one dealing with socio-economic development, which focus mostly on issues relating to your thriving economy.
Right.
If you look into the funding, you don't have a funding that says, let's have a local economic development funding to assist this municipality that we created in former Bantu stand areas to ensure that a thriving small service or even manufacturing economy, whereby these municipalities are able to get their property rate from these businesses in order to invest in infrastructure and maintenance of the very infrastructure that we are developing. So from where we are standing, we believe that National Treasury must agree that the 1998 formula is wrong, and through the intervention of SALGA, because as SALGA we have started a process of developing a paper. In our last NEC, we got a draft that clearly indicates that at the current moment, we are having 69% of what we are supposed to have in terms of funding to fund a complete functional municipality. So we are saying National Treasury working with SALGA, they must come to a point that whereby we're dealing with the necessary base where the problem is funding, so that we can then say when the funding matter is dealt with, what about institutional capacity? What kind of stuff are you having? What kind of institutional arrangement and systems are there, particularly in a controlled environment where you are dealing with money, like you were indicating on the issue of how the monies are being used. So when you have qualified, highly skilled, highly motivated, better paid staff, there's no way that you can fail unless a person is a dismal failure from the word go.
Yeah. I want to also touch on the issue around ESCOM. ESCOM has also come out quite a number of times saying there are a couple of municipalities that continue to, not pay for the fees when it comes to ESCOM, but also there's a backlog, it seems, when it comes to non-payment. Let's talk about what informs that, because there's absolutely, albeit the load shedding, there's no way a municipality can run without electricity. From your understanding, also from a SALGA perspective, what are some of the issues they're informing municipalities not keeping up with their payments with ESCOM?
Yeah, there are two issues that I think we should speak to when we're dealing with issues of ESCOM. The first part is the historical challenge facing your municipalities, particularly in townships areas, like Soweto, for example, where you have a history where people were not paying for these services. And then you need to have that transition to ensure that our people get to understanding that each and every service that we are getting, it must be paid for. So that is why we are also encouraging the municipalities to get into the prepaid system. If you go to municipality, for example, let's talk about Steve Sweater in Mpumalanga. They are using prepaid. They are paid 100% every month in terms of what they're supposed to be paid. So they don't have a problem with ESCOM. So that is why I'm saying the issue of history and the issue of the systems that we are currently using are a disadvantage for municipalities, because our people, not necessarily they're intransigent in payment, in paying for their services. Others, due to the economic downfall, if you go to most of our township, you find that unemployment is around 50%. So the poverty rate, as indicated by your statistics, South Africa, that has been released recently, it clearly stated that we are having an economy that is unable to serve the people. And in the process, local government is going to be the most affected, because everybody stays in a city, everybody stays in a ward. And if mining is reducing people, manufacturing is reducing people, almost every sector, you are finding that a lot of people are becoming retrenched. And where are they going? To municipalities. And then in the process, municipalities bear the burden in terms of being unable to maintain an effective tax base.
So how do we then address the historical or the historic systematic challenges that you point out? I mean, if we're talking Soweto as an example, and we're talking also about the history that you've mentioned informs the challenges in an area such as Soweto, its residents not keeping up with payments, therefore the municipality struggling. That has a knock-on effect then on ESCOM not being able to provide electricity. How do you advise we address those historic systematic challenges?
No, I think this time must take a systems approach that says people must be able to be put on what we call prepaid. Like in our municipality recently, we have agreed that due to lack of customer service, because ESCOM is dismal sometimes, due to lack of customer service from ESCOM, we've been engaging our people when we are in agreement. That is about time that we have our own license, whereby the whole municipality is a prepaid system. You don't owe any put. You either get the electricity or you don't. So that is why we are saying areas like Soweto and other areas, we must agree as local government that the best way is to ensure that to introduce the system of prepaid. Then everything will be leveled around the issues of ESCOM in relation to their payment long term.
It also seems like there's some municipalities that are getting it right. If we're talking about 38 out of 257 municipalities that received clean audits, it's a bittersweet pill to swallow. Bitter in a sense that there's still many municipalities that are lagging behind and that are not doing so well. The outcomes are severely poor, but there's also the 38 that is doing well. Let's touch on two things. The first thing is, what informs that poor outcome from the rest of the municipalities that did not receive clean audits, but also what are the lessons to be learned from those ones that are showing definitely strong performance outcomes here that we see through their clean audits?
I think, as I indicated earlier on, we're going to have to agree that you need a systematic process to change the current institutional challenges facing municipalities. If you check most of the municipalities that are not getting it right, firstly, there is instability in terms of their top management. Secondly, you find that the quality of staff that they are having in relation to their treasury office is lacking. If you look into the Aegis report, it says some of them are not even trainable. So it tells you that you need to then agree that you change that kind of staff, who will then be we will then put the kind of employees that will be able to understand what a financial system is. How do you, on a monthly basis, make your recons and put all those necessary invoices to ensure that at least you have what we call unqualified financial report, because it is divided into two, the report. The first one is in relation to the finances. The other one is in relation to governance relating to your laws, whether you're following the proper laws in terms of going through your, for example, your supply chain. So the report is divided, and finally the issue of leadership. What kind of leadership are you having? That is why the issue of quality in terms of your staff and political leadership is also necessary and important, so that they are able to drive a clean administration moving forward. On lessons to be learned, if you look, most of those municipalities that are doing well, their top management has 10, 15 years working in that municipality. So they have what we call organizational memory. They understand why certain things work and why they don't. So in so doing, you are creating a data of highly skilled, qualified, competent staff that is able to understand the system and understand the institutional challenges and be able to focus for long term how to make sure that those risks, because a municipality that work well, it must have what we call risk-based planning. Those risks that may create that kind of challenge, they are able to anticipate and deal with them moving forward.
Yeah. But also, Mayor, I mean, we can't shy away from some of the rotten apples that make the whole basket stink. If we're looking at what the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, Thembisile, had said, there are around 26 councillors that are facing an investigation due to corruption in various municipalities and various provinces. Let's talk about corruption also being part and parcel of why a majority of our municipalities are not seeing strong performances and also clean audits, and also what the strategy needs to be to root it out so that we could see a more positive and favorable outcome from our municipalities.
No, I agree with you. When, for example, we came in as a team in 2021, that was our first approach, because we believed that as SALGA, plus in my municipality, that when you are able to identify those whose objective, for me, corruption is undermining the development of governments or governance in general. So we must be able to identify where are the gaps that create opportunity. That is why I'm saying in your controlled environment, you must create systems that will make it impossible for somebody to do corruption clearly. For example, when you are talking about supply chain, you must create policies that create transparency in terms of how you are to procure goods and services, whereby even the communities are able to participate, even the communities are able to see through the day-to-day appointment that all of the appointments, because that's where the problem is, all of the appointments are done such that only qualified, with capacity, with history and experience are given the responsibility, firstly, to do the work. Because a municipality that is able to produce quality and standard creates that kind of relationship with the community that shows respect. Because if you service a person with the kind of quality and standard is right, it starts to create confidence in the people to see that this institution is able to provide the kind of services. So for me, I am happy that looking into our legislative framework, a lot of the rotten apples are being identified because those are not part of us. We must state upfront. Those are part of those that we don't want because they are creating a narrative that says local government is corrupt when they are just a few who must be dealt with according to our law and allow local government to move forward and serve the people.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to me this morning, and thank you so much for your time. Thembisile, Hani, Municipality Mayor, Honorable Mayor Lesetja Dikgale, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, too.
All right. Well,
And
of course, that's, of course, the Mayor joining us right here on Newslink.